Hello, welcome to the latest edition of Digital Union's Industry Insights. Today I am chatting to James Hall, who is the recently installed Chief Executive Officer at Orange Bus. Hi James.
Hi Jim.
You alright?
Yeah, very well, you?
Okay, yeah, good, thanks, yeah. So I just wanted to obviously just talk about the business, the sort of specialisms that you do, and then some wider topics around the industry, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So just to dive in, so you've recently been appointed as Chief Exec of Orange Bus after 2.5 years of Chief Commercial Officer. So can you tell us a bit more about your background?
So I started off, after university, in a cylinder manufacturer in Cramlington, helping them implement an ERP system ahead of the much anticipated Y2K bug, which never transpired. And on the back of that, I went to work for IBM Consulting, who were the consultancy organisation helping us implement that. Did 15 years in consultancy with IBM and BT across a various sets of IT-enabled transformations, CRM, ERP, e-procurement, and started getting into more large-scale transformations, predominantly in local government. On the back of that, I was asked to, got an offer of a job to work for ENGIE to help establish what became their cities and communities practice. And then on the back of that, went to Paris, commuted to Paris to lead ENGIE's global smart cities program for a couple of years, which was basically bringing together all of ENGIE's capabilities to focus on smart cities. And that's where I came across Orange Bus. We commissioned a hackathon here in the northeast about connecting the city, so getting all the data from a city and understanding how you can make best use of it and make a useful use case for how you could use that data. And they won that hackathon, and then they did a little bit of work for NG around a project we had on the back of that. So that's when I first came across them in a business perspective.
Were you quite attracted to the prospect of maybe coming to work at Orange Bus, or that? Did you quite like what you were doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd known of Julian 20 odd years ago when I was at IBM. He was a business partner for them. And so I kept a little bit tabs on what they were doing, and I've always had an aspiration to work for a northeast-based consultancy or digital business, and so it really did appeal to come to work for Orange Bus when the opportunity arose.
So obviously when you came in as commercial director, at what point did you sort of realise that there may be an opportunity to lead the company and take on the challenge of becoming the CEO?
And when I was brought on board, there was a recognition that the business needed to grow, and I had the experience of working in large-scale consultancy organisations, and I had a very corporate background. That wasn't Julian and Mike's background, clearly. And so,
I don't know what you mean.
Whether I was brought in as a buffer to the big corporate or not, I think it was fairly obvious that after I'd obviously established myself and proved I could get on board with the business, I took more and more responsibility on. So the transition into CEO was fairly seamless. I've been doing it for quite some time, really, in all but name for quite a while. So it's not been a new job per se since July. It's still been just a new title. And I think that's worked really well. The transition from the founders to myself has been seamless, and that's why we've been able to keep the great culture and everything we've had here with very little attrition. So that period of me taking more and more responsibility, incrementally, over the period has been really good for the business.
And obviously Orange Bus has experienced a huge amount of change and transition recently, and you alluded it to before with the integration in more and more increased integration into Capita. Obviously this has happened over the last 3 years or so, since Mike and Julian sold the company. How do you see yourself leading the company and taking it towards even further growth now?
As you're right to say that we've had a lot of change over the last 3 years. We've invested in our people and our structure to make sure we've got the platform to grow even further in the future. I think my experience in larger scale consultancies will stand us in good stead for that, and the leadership around that. I also think it's key, the investment we'll get from Capita now. You mentioned that. We've moved to a new division within Capita, Capita Consulting, which is really focused on experience and transformation, and they want to invest in the Orange Bus to deliver a lot of the experience technologies that will enable the transformation of experience within businesses. So as we grow from both a technology perspective and a service and experience design perspective, we'll need to continue to recruit more senior, more experienced people and grow the business from there. So hopefully, as I said, my experiences in previous organisations will help us in that. And as I said, now we're in a place in Capita, a new division, which is really set up to drive that, and this business here is going to be at the centre of that. and they've been so impressed by what they've seen here, the culture which they want to replicate across the rest of the business, and it is a changing organisation, and everyone who's been here has been so impressed by what they've seen and how the culture feels and what the vibe around the place is. So very impressed.
So obviously you mentioned earlier service and experience design, and Orange Bus has positioned itself really well in that way. So what is the difference between service and experience design, and why is it important for companies to adopt this going forward in your view?
At Orange Bus we take everything from a user-centred view, a human-centred view about how people experience the service of a business. So the experience piece is how the people feel about the experience they're having with the service. The service design is redesigning that service to enable that experience to be great. We put such an importance on that now because digital is ubiquitous. You're not competing any longer as a business with necessarily other businesses in your sector around that. You're competing around experience. You're competing on the experience people have. People expect the Facebook, the Airbnb experience when they're interacting with you as a business. So getting that experience right is critical. And all of the intellectual property nowadays is in the experience rather than the technology. Technologies with the advent of APIs and able to link lots of different technologies together means those are components of the experience, but how you craft them, how you put them together to deliver an end-to-end experience to a user of your service or customer of your service is critical. So the service design is getting the end-to-end service right for effectively the internal operations, but a view on the user. The experience is how the user experiences that service. And so we put in place the importance on that because people are competing on experience these days. Yeah. One of the interesting adverts at the minute, I don't know whether you know that Barclays are no longer advertising on interest rates or what the products are. They're advertising on what you can do on their app. Right. So what the experience is, how you can get access to their services through their app, and that's how they're trying to differentiate nowadays.
And obviously new technologies, including AI and VR, becoming part of that user experience and service design mix, aren't they? How do you see service and experience design moving forward in the future, with such technologies?
I think all of technologies are enablers to that service and experience design, and they have to be used in the right way. But experience design isn't just around technology. We're doing some work at the minute with an organisation where we're redesigning the content or rewriting the content of their letters that they send out to people, because the experience that they have to have is from that first touch point, which is actually in many cases a letter. So the experience design of that service isn't just necessarily a digital experience. Yeah. So you put in the technologies as you see fit to enhance and improve the experience. So virtual reality, for example, when I was at NG, we used that to help train engineers how to escape a gas rig on the North Sea if there was ever an emergency. Yeah. So they didn't have to train on the rig. They could train in a VR environment where they could know that the layout of the rig was put together, and they could use the VR to help them get to know the escape routes, etc. So that's a really good use of a technology to help an experience. But adding those technologies in for no reason doesn't add any value to the experience. And as I said, I think it's not just about VR and AI. It's about all of the technology and how they can come together to deliver the end-to-end experience.
How do you make the approach? Because obviously, I find working in tech and then working in tech to support with what we do at Generator and Digital Union, supporting other industries to sort of help them or advise them or point them to pathways of where to go to find solutions. We sometimes find that a lot of the companies don't really know what they're looking for, or when you think they're looking for a digital transformation, you then find that actually they're not even that far, they're not even completely adopted to digital as a company, or they're still using outdated systems. So how do you approach working with a company looking to adopt a service or experience design? What is the process that you follow?
So obviously we engage with them to try and understand what their problems are. Once we've got a kind of an understanding of what they think they're trying to solve, there's kind of three routes into it. You mentioned before that people don't necessarily know what problem they're trying to solve, and that's key to it. And if that is the case, and they've got an idea of a problem area, then we've got an applied innovation approach, where we can bring organisations in from 1 day up to 6 to 8 weeks to look at a detailed problem to try and get some more clarity around that problem. And then if it's 8 weeks, then you maybe even develop a prototype to try and solve that problem. We have various packages around that can help, and that's what we're trying to sell around that. If there's a business who knows they've got a fundamental transformation to make because their end-to-end piece is not working, then that's where we'd look at doing service design to helping them redesign their service to enhance the experience of the users and look at that. But if they've got a fair understanding of what that service design is and looks like, we can go straight into app delivery, and we look to deliver on an agile delivery way of working. So we have 3 kind of ways that we think we can help organisations, depending on how formed and how well understood the problem is. The applied innovation approach, which we launched early this year, is proving really popular around that because it enables organisations to come to us for as I said, from a day, a week, 2 weeks, to just try and understand and articulate the problem and put a bit of business case back to their business for further investment. Had some great feedback around that. One of the organisations said we've managed to achieve more in 5 days than we've managed in the last 2 years, which is a really great accolade to how that approach works. And that's becoming more and more popular.
But that's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously you're professionals and experienced, and you've obviously used to solving these problems and helping them solve. That's a really interesting way of approaching it. And obviously, some companies, I do it myself, I spend probably far too long trying to work out how to do something when I probably just pick up the phone and ask someone who does know how to do it.
And we've got a multifunctional team, so for business analysts, user experience people, solutions architects, and they all come together around with the client. Obviously, it's co-creating with the client, it's not us doing it in isolation. And we've just invested in a new lab, new innovation lab in the office downstairs. Fantastic circular room overlooking Dean Street, which will go live in the next few weeks to help enhance that experience, where we can have an ideation room and then a build, measure, learn, so we can go around that circle and come back and try and evolve the problems, and so we pinpoint what the actual solution needs to be, rather than wasting lots of time and effort trying to get to something which just isn't really the problem. Because that's where the investment comes as well, and it costs a lot of money to do that. So we use the phrase, trying to solve the problem right, but also trying to solve the right problem. Before you start building it. Correct. Interesting.
Okay, so Orange Bus started as quite a small company in Newcastle. We did a website for us years ago, and I think there was Julian, Mike, and I think 6 others at the time. And we were based on Claremont Road
in the windmill.
In the old windmill, which is very interesting. That was a while ago, and but obviously it's grown to the size it is. But it's always stayed in Newcastle. Yes, you've got offices in other cities and what have you. But why do you think this is? Why do you think it's always at the centre of Newcastle? What's the appeal of staying in the northeast?
Well, I think obviously we've established this office and this base, and now we've got 120 people, probably 90 of which work out of this office. So we've got that critical mass here, but the attraction is the assets we have in the region. We've got one of the largest user experience communities in the region, which we have a lot of involvement in NUX. The universities, the investment in the National Innovation Centre for Data and Ageing, and what we're trying to achieve as a region with the tech and the tech talent in there. You look at other investors in the region, Accenture, DXC, they're all bringing big delivery centres into the region. And obviously a lot of the founders were Newcastle based. I'm from Newcastle as well, so there's a natural attraction to here as well. But we deliver really well from this here as well. We can have a competitive advantage over the London agencies. We've got a cost advantage clearly. The cost of living here, the attraction in terms of talent, salaries, etc. We can be more competitive. It means we can be more competitive in our rates to customers, and all of the customers that we work to do. If there is a comparison to some of the larger agencies and consultancies, we are kind of assessed very favourably against them, and have some great comments about how people would choose us over a number of the other larger, more well-known consultancies and agencies in London. So I think the talent, attracting the talent, the investment in the region, obviously the fact that we've built from this base and established this culture here, the key things.
No reason to leave.
No,
not at all. Good. So with service and experience design being such a relatively new concept in today's world, what has your experience been in sourcing the right talent for that specific thing?
So I think you're right, and I think there's whilst we say there's lots of the talent in the region, I think we also recognise that there's a big pull on that talent from all of the organisations like Accenture, DXC, others like Sage, HMRC. They're all pulling on that same pool of talent. So I think we need to, as a region, we need to work out how we can best improve the pool of talent around that. whether we can collaborate across organisations for graduate schemes for people to stay in the region, so they've got can see a career in the region, not just a job, so they can stay after university or they can come back into the region for a career in digital and service and experience design. I think if we advocate, or make people understand what that is and how that career path could be based out of the region, then there's absolutely no reason why we can't get a lot more talent into the region. But at the minute, that's the biggest issue for us.
Biggest challenge. Yeah. Obviously, once you've got this talent, people come to work here and everybody talks about, Orange Bus's great team culture. You have OB Fest, social events, the games room that we're actually sitting at the back of now. Shame about there isn't a roaring fire for this fireside chat, but you can't have anything. So why do you choose to invest so much in the company culture, and why do you think that's important?
Well, I think firstly it's important to say that this is the best place I've ever worked for culture. It's just an amazing vibe here. There is just such a positive attitude that the people are really bought into Orange Bus and what we stand for. And we sell people's talents for money, and we don't have licenses, we don't have products, we don't sell anything else but the people's talents. So why wouldn't we invest in them? We have to. We want to make sure that they grow with us, they want to stay with us around that. So making sure that they have not just the investment from a career path perspective and making sure they've got the right skills and the right frameworks in place, but making sure that they have access to all of the peripheral activities as well that makes a great culture. As I said, the games room investment here, we do put a lot of investment in social events. We have beers with ideas on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, which brings together the company to look at problems we're having with clients or maybe distilling some information around a certain topic, and people get together in a presentation area, beer at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, stay together for that because they don't really drift off. Absolutely amazing culture here, very relaxed around it, and I think that's really important, and people feel a lot more bought into what we're trying to do, because I think they feel a lot closer to their colleagues because of all of the investment we put in. And it's not down to us. We give all this out to the party planning committee and other parts of the organisation to manage and own. We had no input into the redecoration or redesign of this room, or we have no input into the management team, into any of the parties or anything like that. We just give that control to the people who want to be involved in that, and that's important as well, because I think that autonomy and that ability to make the decisions is really helpful to creating that culture.